Dang. Chapter 33. It was the 5th day of the 5th month. Many ventured out to celebrate the beginning of summer despite the upheavals in the city. According to the rules of the palace, eunuchs could have a day off on the day of the Dragon Boat Festival, and this custom applied to Nanjing as well. At noon, on the riverbanks outside the city, one could observe crowds of people in colored brocade robes. They were all junior eunuchs, dressed lightly and riding, competing in archery and enjoying themselves. Yashiha's horse followed Zhang Chai closely. Whenever he turned left, Yashiha would follow, and whenever he turned right, Yashiha went right as well. The two were practically inseparable. After reaching a bend in the river, where a gentle clear breeze was ever so soothing, Zhang Chai slowed down. He tugged the reins of his horse and instructed Yashiha, "Go fetch some water for me." Yashiha examined the surroundings nervously. "Let's head back shortly. It's unsafe these days. With you by my side, what do I have to fear?" A smile blossomed on Zhang Chai's face, which had tiny beads of sweat over its surface due to the heat. His rosy cheeks shone against his black muslin cap, radiating a youthful gorgeousness. "Hurry up, I'm thirsty." While they were talking, a group of people gradually approached from the opposite bank of the river. Women were dressed in palace attire, wearing silk butterflies in their hair, and accompanied by men who appeared to be guards. The group looked like they belonged to a wealthy noble family. Among them, a tall woman glanced in their direction and stood still. Across the shallow water, with over a dozen steps in between, Yashiha recognized her. She was the girl who asked to meet him outside the mansion, a maid from the Prince of Kaiping residence. He immediately turned his face away, wanting to leave as soon as possible as he pulled the reins of Zhang Chai's horse. Zhang Chai also spotted her. His face grew solemn, refusing to move, as if taking a stern stance to challenge her. "Yashiha, I want my water. You can drink all you want when we get back." Yashiha scolded him. The moment Yashiha turned their horses around, the girl unexpectedly rushed a few steps forward. She even lifted her long skirt and waded through the water to chase after them. Splash! Her footsteps sounded eager. And Zhang Chai, as if being wronged, fixed his red, teary eyes on her. She crossed the river. Her wet skirt billowed in the fragrant breeze of the 5th month as she walked all the way in front of Yashiha. Then, she remained silent, although she tilted her head earnestly upwards, and gently tugged at the corner of Yashiha's robe hanging from the colorful saddle. Regardless of all those watching her, she was still completely engrossed, walking after the horse as if enchanted. The horse picked up speed, so she had to run to keep up. During this whole time, Yashiha had never once looked at her, but Zhang Chai did, all along. The girl's face was neat and elegant, so one could say she had some attractiveness in her. Zhang Chai lifted his whip high and lashed it fiercely on Yashiha's horse. The girl let out a shocked cry, falling onto the ground, into the dust kicked up by the horse's hooves. Zhang Chai remained gloomy on the entire trip back to the city, unresponsive no matter what Yashiha said to him. After they entered the gate and dismounted, Zhang Chai tossed his whip to the young gatekeeping eunuch, heading back to his own quarters while roughly wiping his tears with his sleeve. The environment inside the mansion was vastly different from the outside, so Yashiha didn't dare get close to him. His head was drooping as he tailed behind Zhang Chai, watching Zhang Chai's hand, which was wiping his face, move with increasing frequency. He stomped his feet and finally made up his mind. After looking all around him with a guilty consciousness, he reached for Zhang Chai's chin and wiped away his tears. "Let go." Zhang Chai pushed him away, appearing like he couldn't stand Yashiha anymore. Yashiha defended himself, "I didn't even look at her, not even once." Zhang Chai stopped, glaring at him with his moist, slender phoenix eyes, "But she was looking at you." "Shhh, Yashiha grabbed his hand, "Would you speak softer?" This time, Zhang Chai didn't shove him away and he also obediently lowered his voice. "For a big man like you, Your gut is tinier than a needle. He lifted the corner of his eyes and stared at him sharply, locking his eyes with Yoshiha's, yet suddenly, a chuckle escaped his lips, making Zhang Chai turn around somewhat shyly. Yoshiha assessed the surroundings and discreetly took Zhang Chai into his embrace. My heart is breaking to hear you cry. Come, Zhang Chai gently shook his arm, to my room. I'm not sure about that. Yoshiha stepped back right away. Suppose your brother sees us. Ignoring him, Zhang Chai went forth to push open the door. He leaned against the door frame adorned with silvery wormwood, raised his eyebrows and asked once again, are you coming or not? Under such a situation, Yoshiha dared not refuse, so he gathered his courage and inched forward. I'll just sit for a moment and leave. Humph. Zhang Chai shot him an irritated look, unfastened his long sword from his belt as he stepped over the threshold, striding into his room. The windows were wide open. A gust of wind blew through the room and brought them some coolness. Zhang Chai removed his yesa and untied his hair net. Then, he turned around and saw Yoshiha cautiously and stealthily stepped into his quarter, holding the door like a thief and shut it behind him without making a sound. Everyone's out celebrating the beginning of summer. No one's here. Zhang Chai took off his hairpin and shook his head, letting his long hair pour down his shoulder. With the door closed, Yoshiha appeared much more at ease. Knowing his way in this room, he flipped a teacup over and began to pour himself water. What shall we do if anyone reported me to your brother? The door's shut, and there are only the two of us. Zhang Chai stood barefoot on the floor, his head hanging low. How could anyone know what we're doing? There seemed to be some hidden meaning in his words. Pretending not to understand him, Yoshiha asked, shall we play dice or yuzushi? Zhang Chai sat down cross-legged on the edge of the bed. Yoshiha affectionately settled next to him. The dice and the cards were all tucked under the pillow. He remembered that, so he extended his arm, reaching over Zhang Chai to search for them. At that moment, Zhang Chai took advantage of their position, threw his arms around Yoshiha's neck and kissed him on the chin unexpectedly without warning. Yoshiha was taken aback. He was almost jumping in retreat as he stared at him stunned. Feeling embarrassed by his reaction, Zhang Chai lowered his head, grabbed his fair feet positioned over his crossed leg, and stayed silent. What's going on with you? Yoshiha was prepared to get up, only to be forcefully pulled back onto the bed by Zhang Chai, who hugged his arm and wrapped his entire body over Yoshiha. While doing so, he kept rubbing his delicate young lips all over Yoshiha's face. Ah Chai, ah Chai. Yoshiha tried his best to push Zhang Chai away. Yet, as he didn't want to hurt him with his strength, he was effectively a prisoner under Zhang Chai, who was now pressing onto him like a weight of a scale. Do you have any idea of what you're doing? I do. Zhang Chai's hair was disheveled, his cheeks and lips glistening red. This is what Dugong and Xiaolu did. Then could you dare? Yoshiha couldn't bear to finish his sentence, for fear of hurting Zhang Chai with his harsh, realistic words. Two men doing this will surely be looked down upon. Guo Xiaozhou does this for a living, and Aliu still treats him like a treasure. What is that Guo Xiaozhou, and how can he compare to you? If Dugong dares to do it, I dare, too. Zhang Chai announced firmly, exuding an ambiguous, intimate innocence as he looked into Yoshiha's eyes, do you dare? Yoshiha swallowed hard. He lowered his head, I can't harm you. Radiance was lost from Zhang Chai's face. He let go of Yoshiha and slowly got up from him. You fucked her, didn't you? What? Her? Yoshiha was confused. When he finally understood Zhang Chai's words, he scrambled up from the bed and grabbed his body. I am with you. Why would I do anything with her? If you're with me, why won't you kiss me? Zhang Chai frivolously gave him a sideways glance. The expression looked like it did not come from someone of 14 or 15 years of age. We don't have to do that when we're together. Yoshiha's shoulders collapsed in a cowardly manner. He had none of his usual burly appearance at all. I feel happy as long as I get to look at you every day. But I want to get intimate with you. Zhang Chai positioned himself, so that they were sitting face to face. He took Yoshiha's thick palm into both of his hands and rubbed it. I'd like to do whatever the other couples are doing. Caught in this dilemma, Yoshiha neither agreed, nor did he object. So, Zhang Chai slowly leaned towards him, standing on his knees, and hugged Yoshiha's head. He pressed his wet lips against the tall bridge of his nose, the first kiss. Then he turned to his deep eye sockets, the second kiss. Following which, Zhang Chai went for his mouth. Yet before he could reach it, Yoshiha suddenly pushed him over and pinned him down, kissing him hard on the lips as he breathed scorching hot air. Zhang Chai let out a groan, a soft sound like a lazy cat, then he obediently placed his arms over Yoshiha's shoulders, surrendering himself to his wildness, which were truly wild actions, as Yoshiha knew nothing of how to perform such a deed. He sucked those tiny lips again and again, not stopping even when the corners of Zhang Chai's mouth became swollen. Similar to Yoshiha, Zhang Chai was just as inexperienced, so he asked ingenuously, Is that how we do this? Yoshiha's mind was a mess. He fixed his eyes on Zhang Chai's delicate mouth. The moment Zhang Chai spoke, those neat white teeth of his and that little tongue, which could only be seen at times, were all revealed. Almost instantly, he transformed into a wolf digging in the ground, or a hound guarding his food, charging ferociously onto Zhang Chai, stirring up tides of lust between their lips and teeth. Zhang Chai was even getting afraid. He grabbed his collar and moaned, and the more he moaned, the more eager Yoshiha became. In between their passionate kisses, Zhang Chai asked breathlessly, Shall we, take off our clothes? Ah! Yoshiha wiped the saliva from his chin and jumped up all of a sudden, Put down the bed curtains first. And so he went to the corners of the bed to let the curtains loose, a layer of muslin and a layer of cloth, both were now hanging and blocking the light, sealing the canopy bed in darkness. Within this blackness, Zhang Chai removed all his clothes. Under the mauve-colored shadows cast by the curtains, Yoshiha saw two thin legs that belonged to no adult man, and a slender back with charming shoulder blades, half protruding under the delicate skin. Ah Chai! He let out a cry suddenly. Then, ecstatically, or even a little recklessly, Yoshiha began to tear his clothes off from top to bottom, revealing his muscular back as strong as a tiger and a waist thick as a bear. A little bit of shyness still remained in him, so he covered his lower parts with the clothes he took off, and eagerly pulled the thin blanket from the bed to spread it out. He threw himself on top of Zhang Chai, and covered their bodies underneath the blanket. Then it was naturally the time for erotic play. Flesh against flesh and legs between legs. Under the almost suffocating blanket, Yoshiha frantically touched all over the little body, making Zhang Chai cry and moan helplessly all the time. This was their first time after all, so both of them were releasing all their passion, so violently that the blanket over them was bumping up and down, so fervently that the bed frame was creaking and shaking in madness, even the bed curtain was trembling in their overflowing desire. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Dusk gathered as the sun set in the west, leaving a crimson hue overhead. Jintang passed through the flower market street, riding on his horse, followed by a dozen of his men. The military camps in the west and the north are simply mediocre. Too unreliable. Rather than joining the celebrations of summer, he brought his trusted subordinates along to inspect the military camps outside the city. As he toured the camps in the east, west, south, and north, the further he went, the gloomier his heart became. Could the situation really escalate? His men were still hoping for the best. Jintang lifted his head. Looking at the reddish-gold sun in the sky, he replied, Days are getting hotter, making the mob restless. They passed by the street of Su Mansion as they talked, where a group of people was violently cursing and smashing baskets of boulders onto the mansion's gate. What's going on? Jintang halted his horse, and his men immediately rode over to investigate. They soon reported back with what they saw. It's the old Su mansion. It's been vacant for years, but now Gong Nian resided in there. Gong Nian? That old acquaintance from Gansu. Jintang was surprised. With his temperament, he would have appeared long ago to arrest these men. We heard that he's out on an official errand, so he's not at home. By right, Jintang should have urged his horse forward and be on his way, but he had fought alongside Gong Nian against the Tartars and swallowed snow together at the hardest times, so he couldn't let these people go easily. Gong Nian has remarkable contributions in both Gansu and Zhejiang. Who dares to smash his gate? Hearing that, his subordinates went to investigate again, although there was actually no need for a proper investigation at all. From the ostentatious accusations, Jintang was already aware that it all happened because of the Yang society. The bastard Gong Nian is colluding with the powerful eunuch Zhang Xian. His heart is beyond evil. Gong Nian and Liao Jixiang were close friends, so how could they accuse him of taking Zhang Xian's side? Jintang was furious. At this point, his men reported, Gong, the man behind this is the hot topic, who's also the current head of the Yang society. Although the name was not explicitly mentioned, Jintang knew that it was Chu Feng. A sudden pain pierced his heart, yet Jintang's face concealed it well. This thing about Gong Nian and Zhang Xian, have any of you heard about it? Where did it come from? The dozen or so men exchanged confused glances, and Jintang, after a moment of consideration, spurred his horse towards Minister Chu's mansion 2 streets away. He knocked on the back door and handed over his name card. Just as he expected, Chu Feng refused to meet him. So Jintang dismounted and warned the gatekeeper, "Tell Chu Simu that I'm not leaving until he let me in. Let's see who will be more embarrassed, him or me." The next time the gatekeeper returned, he was invited in right away. Following the servant's lead, Jintang was led to a quiet, shabby servant's quarter. Chu Feng was dressed in casual clothes, and the very first sentence he uttered when he saw Jintang was, "Aren't you intentionally giving me trouble by visiting me so indiscreetly?" Jintang stared at him blankly. For a moment, he was at a loss for words. Chu Feng had not changed at all, carefree and handsome, wearing a strong benzoin fragrance. He wore a gold pendant about his belt, which was tied on a tricolored glazed porcelain buckle. A walking stick was leaning by the table. Chu Feng's foot had probably not yet healed. Sensing Jintang's reticence, Chu Feng sighed. "In our current situation, what else is left to say between us?" Indeed, there was nothing left to say. Ever since he was carried out of the West Yamen, Chu Feng didn't show up even once, not to mention saying a simple thank you to Jintang. Using all his strength to suppress the inexplicable melancholy in his heart, Jintang finally asked, "Did you send people to smash Gong Nian's gate?" There was a plate of mountain walnuts in front of Chu Feng, which he casually took and cracked open. "Now, in the current Yang society, no one dare to move without my instructions. Don't you know what's happening in the city?" Jintang walked towards him in disbelief and pressed Chu Feng's hand down. "We're in such a dire time now, yet all you want is to stir up a fight between parties." "Ha!" Chu Feng laughed, "You make it sound like you're the one saving the day." He dropped the walnuts and rubbed his hands. "Aren't you all also racing horses and indulging yourselves?" Jintang's grip on his hand was stained with sweat, but he held on even tighter. "Zhang Xian doesn't care about the city. If you don't care either, Nanjing is going to fall." Chu Feng slammed the table. "Didn't it all begin with Liao Jixiang cutting down the dwarf pear trees?" "You know it well." Jintang leaned in closer, speaking earnestly, "that it was you who forced the common folks to repair the embankment, driving them to a rebellion." He softened his tone, his speech now betraying traces of imploring, "You have influence. Please, all it takes is one sentence from you." The moment Jintang softened, Chu Feng felt rather ashamed. His head was drooping when he said, "What am I? I'm nothing but a flag relying on the wind. If it weren't for the wind of anti-castrated sentiment, I would be nothing." They were too close, so close that the scent of benzoin toyed with Jintang's nerves, making him dizzy and a little reckless. For the sake of our companionship, he leaned even closer, "If we still have any left." Chu Feng didn't hesitate to reply, "How could we not have it?" He stared deeply into Jintang's eyes from up close. "You and Chun Chu, you will always have a place in my heart." "Xiaolu, Liao Jixiang Xiaolu." Jintang was dazed for a moment. He lived his life following Dugong in all aspects, so much so that he was like a living shadow of Dugong. If Dugong had Xiaolu, shouldn't he deserve a Chu Feng by his side? Madness must have taken hold of him. Long forgotten that a gentleman shall not act recklessly, long forgotten his own identity as a eunuch, Jintang's lip trembled and lightly touched the side of Chu Feng's cheek. Just one touch and he saw no turning back. Chu Feng took a step back. He was initially stunned, then he rushed forward, and slapped hard, aiming on Jintang's left cheek. Jintang flinched and covered his face. All he could hear was Chu Feng furiously flicking his sleeves, slamming the door and storming out of the room. Outside the door, he cursed wrathfully, "Despicable." End chapter. Dadang. Chapter 34. Night gathered. Xiaolu was already in bed when someone came to his door. He turned over, listened as De Tian shuffled in his shoes to answer the door. After a while, footsteps came in his direction. "Master." It was De Tian. "Someone named Yang Chun is looking for you. Do you know him?" Xiaolu was stunned for a moment before he immediately scrambled up from the bed, grabbed his outer robes from the side, put his arms through the sleeves as he hastily said, yes, I know him well. Ask him to wait just a moment." The fact that Liao Jixiang sent people to look for him was something Xiaolu had never dared to dream of. After putting on his clothes, he eagerly opened the door. An old man was waiting in the courtyard. His back was hunched, his eyes weary from old age. The old man squinted to study him briefly, and gave him a rough nod before turning and walking away. Despite finding this incident somewhat suspicious, Xiaolu decided to follow. The old man had a lantern with him. After leaving the courtyard, they turned northward into a narrow alley. Not a single household could be found on either side of the road, and the only occupants here were old stone walls covered in moss. "This isn't the way to Xianzhen Lane," Xiaolu nervously said. "Are you sure that I'm the one you were looking for?" He stopped, ready to turn back at any time, yet the old man seemed fairly nonchalant as he answered, "Tall and scholarly. Rather handsome, though a bit shabby. Isn't that you?" Xiaolu was speechless. While the term shabby sounded unflattering, it appeared to be truly describing him. Did he say so to you?" "Ah." The old man didn't even bother to look back, his response an artless syllable typical of those simple folks. "Up ahead." "Almost there." He turned left and right leading Xiaolu, and indeed, they arrived soon at a small courtyard. They entered through the back door, and the old man immediately extinguished the lantern. With his withered, gnarled fingers, he pointed towards the main chamber. "Go ahead, he's waiting for you." "Who?" "Yang Chun." Xiaolu was incredulous, as if in a dream. "My master." The old man looked at him with his protruding, cloudy big eyes. "Don't know his name, but what a tiny chick babe he is. Lots of money for his young age. That must be Liao Jixiang." No longer hesitant, Xiaolu gathered his robe and dashed up the staircase leading to the main chamber. At the door, he stopped, drew a deep breath and recalled a line from the Romance of the Western Chamber. "Waited for the moonrise in the west chamber, the door half shielding the wind. Figures of blossoms danced against the wall, and I wondered, had my love arrived?" With a little push, the door creaked open. The first sound he heard belonged to the chanting, "To those who are pure and kind, those with power to cleanse and tame evil karma, I bow to you in reverence and gratitude, pray for your long-lasting protection." So that, in times of fear, when all forms of chaos and confusion are experienced, when disasters and illnesses come to challenge, when poisons strike or when fate withdraws its favor, pray protect me and my people, and grant us a long life with no maladies. This is his voice. Xiaoyulo stood completely still, yet the feelings in his heart had long boiled like a turbulent sea. Stepping over the threshold, he was like a thirsty, dried blade of grass, went forth tremblingly to greet the spring that belonged only to him. Liao Jixiang was standing in front of the Buddhist altar under the window facing east, his hands clasped in prayer, his hair tied with a hairpin. A jasmine flower was tucked on the side of his hair, which was indeed a rare sight. When he noticed Xiaoyulo, he hurriedly muttered, "The devoted Buddhist disciple Liao Jixiang," and hastily concluded his prayers. Then came the silence. He appeared like he didn't know what to do. After limping forward a few steps, he retreated again cautiously. Xiaoyulo was unable to comprehend Liao Jixiang's hesitation. He himself should have been the one to feel this way. The things he did to Liao Jixiang at the peak of his lust filled him with regret and shame whenever he thought about them. "This is rather close by, isn't it?" Liao Jixiang suddenly remarked. Xiaoyulo was momentarily taken aback, not knowing what to say. And so Liao Jixiang waited, then, he lowered his voice in embarrassment, "In the future, it'd be easier for you to come." "So, he's referring to this place." Xiaoyulo immediately replied, "It is. Very close. So close that it felt like this house was prepared just for him. This is almost," it was a smart move of him to stop himself halfway, leaving out the rest of the sentence, "like keeping my treasure in a golden chamber." Liao Jixiang stole a shy glance at him. The two of them were in fact face to face, so it wasn't truly a stolen glance. Nevertheless, the timid, evading gaze tickled Xiaoyulo's heart. "I thought you wouldn't want to see me again." As Liao Jixiang didn't move, Xiaoyulo walked towards him. "I was regretting every day." Liao Jixiang relaxed. He obediently waited at his spot without moving. He looked stunning wearing that jasmine flower. Xiaoyulo greedily admired him under the faint candlelight. For some reason that he failed to pinpoint, he was convinced that the flower must have been placed there just for him, and while it was beautiful, it wounded Liao Jixiang's natural lofty pride. Reaching out, he gently plucked the flower from Liao Jixiang's hair. Instead of sensually sniffing it like lovers often do, he placed the jasmine blossom aside rather dispassionately. Liao Jixiang's gaze followed Xiaoyulo's hand as he laid down the flower, his expression apprehensive. "I thought you'd like it." "I like you," Xiaoyulo boldly confessed. In this secret golden chamber, he found no need to hold back anymore. "I like you the way you are." As he spoke, he cradled Liao Jixiang's cheek with his palm, gently brushing his thumb against the soft, fair skin. "I must be crazy to dare telling you all this." Liao Jixiang lifted his gaze to look at him. He appeared as though he was melting inside out. Slowly and ever so gently, he closed his eyes, and softly leaned towards the warmth of Xiaoyulo's palm. Although no words were audible, his movements spoke volumes. Listening to his pounding heartbeats, Xiaoyulo took Liao Jixiang into his tender embrace. "To the," Liao Jixiang mumbled in his arms. Couldn't quite make out what he said. Xiaoyulo loosened his grip and looked at him quizzically. The more he looked, the more Liao Jixiang evaded his eyes. In the end, he decided to slip out of Xiaoyulo's hug and took a seat on the edge of the bed. Naturally, Xiaoyulo followed wherever he went. He was intending to sit next to Liao Jixiang, yet after a brief moment of thought, he deliberately left a bit of space between them for fear of disturbing Liao Jixiang with his clumsy moves. Liao Jixiang gave him a glance of surprise, then lowered his head somewhat dejectedly. For a moment, neither of them spoke. In the warm, reddish candlelight, an awkward distance, neither too far nor too close, separated the two. Liao Jixiang's eyes darted about, as if he were nervously anticipating something that was long overdue. Eventually, he decided to turn around and retrieve a small silver tray from the shelf next to the bed. Sitting on the tray was a set of flagon and cups. Just as his usual habits at home, he was ready for his routine, a cup of wine at night. No effort was required of Liao Jixiang, as Xie Yulu immediately reached out, attentively pouring the wine for him. As if he was afraid to meet Xie Yulu's eyes, Liao Jixiang fixed his gaze on the hand that held the flagon, then he raised the cup to his lips and finished it in a single gulp. "Take it slow," Xie Yulu gently scolded. Liao Jixiang gave him a sideways glance with the corner of his eyes, which were now slightly flushed. His bodhisattva lips opened and then closed. "I want more." How could Xie Yulu bear to say no to him? So, all he did was to furrow his brow and fill the cup once again for Liao Jixiang. "You believe in Buddhism, so you should drink less," he remarked as he sneaked a glance at Liao Jixiang's expression, worrying that he might become upset. One's mind is often dulled in too much wine. "When I was younger," Liao Jixiang said, biting the edge of his wine cup shaped like a lotus leaf, his expression appeared truly somewhat obtuse as he immersed in memory. Every year, on the 15th of the 7th month, the Palace Academy would hold the Yulanpan festival. People from the Sutra Bureau would come over and chant the sutras all night long. A smile suddenly appeared on Liao Jixiang's face. Once the chanting were concluded, we would kick off our shoes and play barefoot by the bonfire that was over 3 feet tall. I watched Little May's somersaults and Miss Zheng's spin so many times. /Note, Yulanpan Festival or Hungry Ghost Festival. It's a day when ghosts and spirits, including those of deceased ancestors, came out of ghost realm to visit the living. Xie Yulu was surprised that he mentioned Zheng Xian. Were the two of them also in the Palace Academy? Liao Jixiang shook his head. They served as guards with umbrella and fan bureau, in the office of Pheasant's Tail. He tilted his head to look at Xie Yulu. As if he was suddenly awake from a distant dream, he said nonchalantly, "That was all a part of the past." Xie Yulu shifted closer to him. "What about your family?" His hand gradually approached Liao Jixiang's hand resting by the edge of the bed, prying his fist open and holding the sticky palm that was revealed. "Why didn't you bring them here?" Liao Jixiang's eyes were now studying Xie Yulu's hand, which was now close to him. It appeared somewhat unfamiliar, yet he seemed to have been expecting it for a long time. He flipped his own hand over to grab Xie Yulu's hand firmly. They were gone. Gone. Xie Yulu should have guessed this long ago, but what Liao Jixiang said after that caught him completely off guard. "My father had his chin severed. He died in prison. My mother hanged herself. Our entire family, 270 souls in total, were banished to Liaodong and was forced to serve as soldiers and laborers. I am a son of a sinned man, so I was put through the penalty of being fully cleansed." Xie Yulu's eyes widened in shock. Candlelight flickered beside them, an overtly bleak presence in the chamber. "Now that you know everything," Liao Jixiang looked at him timidly, tightly holding Xie Yulu's hand, "you won't despise me, will you?" Xie Yulu still couldn't understand what happened. Why did they sever his chin? In the year that De Dangsu died, he was playing the flute at home. One of the servants reported him. Just because he was playing the flute, his chin was severed. Due to his disrespect towards a De Dang, his son was now a De Dang too. What a damned cycle of fate. Xie Yulu's hand suddenly tightened, almost bending Liao Jixiang's fingers towards the opposite direction. "He brought this on you. He failed you." Full of regret and pity, he condemned Liao Jixiang's father, and how could Liao Jixiang not blame him, too? Yet even if he did, his feelings couldn't make any difference now. In case, gently and carefully, Liao Jixiang endured the pain of his fingers as he reminded Xie Yulu, the fugitives or mobs breach in, remember to go to Zheng Xian's residence. Xie Yulu was still rather stunned, so Liao Jixiang leaned his entire body towards him. In the last couple of days, he's been increasing the number of soldiers at his residence. The men he chose should be reliable, making it the safest place in all of Nanjing. All of a sudden, Xie Yulu realized that he might be the very last being Liao Jixiang still cared about in this world, and for that he had to cherish himself. Are you going? When the time comes, not only me but all the prominent figures in Nanjing will. Before Liao Jixiang could finish his sentence, Xie Yulu pinned him down onto the bed, and drowned him in waves of passionate kisses. Liao Jixiang was still trying to say something, but his words turned into moans and sobs as Xie Yulu sucked on his lips. From the bottom of his heart, Xie Yulu genuinely found Liao Jixiang too precious to be real. Like the colorful dusk on a summer day, or a drop of dew on the morning lotus leaf. He was lost as he tried to take him in his arms, failed as he attempted to hold him in his palms, making him confused and troubled, deeply enchanted. As he sucked and licked those lips, Xie Yulu sensed that Liao Jixiang was actually responding clumsily to him. Like a suckling babe, Liao Jixiang innocently nibbled and bit Xie Yulu. He couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then he licked the corner of Liao Jixiang's mouth, and propped up his upper body to look at him with a smile, which clearly flustered Liao Jixiang, causing him to glare at him with feigned anger, half coquettishly and half annoyed. "Oh, my bad, my bad." Xie Yulu immediately admitted his mistake, although his playful attitude contained no sincerity. He leaned next to Liao Jixiang's ear and whispered, "Let me teach you." Perhaps Liao Jixiang felt tickled, so he retracted his neck to hide from him. Yet Xie Yulu refused to let him get away. He clasped Liao Jixiang's body and persistently breathed hot air into his ears, and at the same time, his hand went to the collar of his clothes. After rubbing around sensually, his hand wriggled its way in. Unlike his usual response to such actions, Liao Jixiang didn't fight, nor did he run. Instead, he obediently raised his arms and wrapped them around Xie Yulu's hunched shoulders. Xie Yulu was so flattered the moment Liao Jixiang's arms rested on him, that he widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Yang Chun." "Chun Chu," Liao Jixiang responded, blushing and smiling. His fingers lazily traced the wrinkled folds of his clothes, "Xie Chun Chu." Just as the saying goes, if one meets his demise under peony blossoms, he remains gallant even in death. Xie Yulu didn't believe it in the past, yet at this very moment, he would be welcoming his death if it ever came to it. "I will forever treat you well." As if it was not enough, he made another promise, "I'll pamper you till you're high above the clouds." Under the influence of the wine, Liao Jixiang became bolder as well. With no money or power, he looked at Xie Yulu intently, even somewhat provocatively. "How do you plan to pamper me?" Without saying anything, Xie Yulu looked at him, then he tore all his clothes off, and proceeded with his bare chest to pull Liao Jixiang's shirt off. The overflowing eagerness in him was almost frightening, yet Liao Jixiang willingly accepted those overwhelming feelings into his embrace as he trembled under him. At last, they were going to do it. Sensing happiness and shyness simultaneously, he was ready to satiate the desire of a man with his body of a eunuch. After stripping off Liao Jixiang's upper garments, Xie Yulu's hand went down below, his mind enchanted and irrational. Yet just as his fingers touched the strings tied up about the waist, Liao Jixiang shuddered and stopped him. "No," his voice quivered, "don't." Xie Yulu tried to tug it loose. "How can anyone do it with their pants on? Will you just spare me of this?" Liao Jixiang hugged his arm and implored softly. He murmured, "I am disabled." He wasn't talking about his knee but his cleansed lower body. Xie Yulu reluctantly let go. Swallowing anxiously, he stood on his knees and untied his own pants in extreme impatience. As he loosened his hand, a hard, dark straight object was revealed. For a moment, Liao Jixiang didn't even recognize what it was, so he only stared at it blankly. Xia Yulu's eyes focused on his blushing face, watching as his expression transformed from innocence to passion. How should he describe that look? It was first and foremost, astonishment, a form of shameful shock from someone who had never seen a real male part, yet it was also mingled with curiosity and desire, like the longing for a pleasant rain after a long drought. Your first time, seeing it? Xia Yulu couldn't believe it, but Liao Jixiang's behavior convinced him so. He had truly never seen a penis before. He grabbed Liao Jixiang's hand, wanting him to touch it, but Liao Jixiang retracted in fear. He may have been disgusted, since he displayed such a determined resistance, yet his eyes betrayed him, disclosing his hopeless obsession for that long-lost object. Since he refused to touch it, Xia Yulu knelt closer, holding his cock, and nudged it against Liao Jixiang's hand. Like hiding from an insect, Liao Jixiang tried to avoid it. His hand, which was clenched into a fist and huddled at his side, was caught by Xia Yulu. The red crown of the cock gently rubbed on the back of his hand. It was wet. Liao Jixiang was surprised, both at its sticky texture, and at the thin white thread of moisture that elongated when pulled away. After getting his hands on it, Liao Jixiang didn't seem to be as averse to it as before. At the moment, he was staring at it intensely in an almost voyeuristic manner. Then, he slowly reached out, the back of his hand lightly, and briefly came into contact with that monster. Even if the touch lasted only for an instant, he still had no idea about what to do next. It had never occurred to him that this object is actually hard to touch, hot to feel, and genuinely alive. Xia Yulu grabbed his wrist, wrapping Liao Jixiang's soft palm around the base of his cock. Once the cock was sitting readily in that warm palm, Xia Yulu held Liao Jixiang's hand and stroked his length hard twice. His original intention was to stop after having a taste of it, but this is truly Liao Jixiang's hand. Overwhelmed by his burning desire, he failed to hold back and moaned wildly and wantonly. Liao Jixiang was frightened by his beastly behavior, so he withdrew his hand rather unwillingly and stared blankly at the odd mucus in his palm. He knew that it was not urine, yet he was unaware that this wasn't actually semen. Xia Yulu thought that Liao Jixiang found his moisture dirty. Just as he was about to find something to wipe him clean, Liao Jixiang asked innocently, or perhaps even a little shamelessly, "If I ate this, would I have an erection too?" End chapter.